you know, a couple were open. So do we put anything on
You
it?
can put Neosporin.
Neosporin,
Put
okay.
Neosporin, keep an eye on it. He's not the first dog, he's not gonna be the last dog.
Okay,
Just put some Neosporin, keep an eye on it. If you have like, peroxide or whatever you want, just spray it on there, clean it up, fill anything that's there.
okay.
And then, if you want, you can, because we have it fit at the top, correct?
Yeah.
Let's take a look here.
And
Did
then,
he get grouped?
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
we went to your place. They did a
How'd
great
you like
job. You know, they did fine.
Yeah. Oh.
His nails were so long. Tim,
Yeah.
you wanna tell him one of them, the vein, I guess?
Oh, the cute, the,
So,
No, it broke off.
it did break off finally? Okay.
okay.
So it's super short.
He was bleeding a bit because the nail was so long and the vein had grown out.
Sure.
But otherwise, he did, honestly, he did fine. They did a great job.
Yeah, no, I like those ladies.
The collar, do we, you know, it smells, you know, maybe because before he was groomed, he was dirty.
Uh-huh.
But can we like clean the prongs?
Yeah, you can wipe it down, get
With,
some
like,
alcohol,
alcohol?
rubbing
That's what I
alcohol,
thought. Okay.
or whatever, yeah. Because it's a fully waterproof system.
Okay.
You can maybe remove the probes individually.
Oh,
And, yeah, so, and in here, because this is technically correct, like it can maybe go one more looser, but that's technically a correct fit because
Jan,
it's
go
such
feel
a
it so you
dense
know.
coat.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure you understand, because she thinks that I'm being cruel with it
I
at that
didn't say that.
point. That's what
I get it all the time.
Okay.
So typically when I tell the owners, they're like, oh, isn't that too tight? I'm like, it means it's just right. So, but yeah, it could possibly be one more loose, but since he's got this thick coat here, you know, I just go by consistency. Who's got the remote here? Go ahead and press on that nick function, that bumpy button.
You know what the nick is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Tamara, I can't remember who
Yeah.
that was.
there we go. There's also, you can get replacement probes that are longer to help get through the coat if you ever feel like there's inconsistency
Okay.
with the contact and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're on Amazon. They were selling for $12, and I don't know, because of COVID or something, I think I saw them as high as 30 now,
Wow.
which is stupid. But
yeah, everything got.
yeah, everything got jacked up. So they're between 12 to $30. So they have inch-long probes,
Mhm.
and they have 3/4 inch, and it's 3/4 inch thick hair. Either one of those.
Do you
3/4
think
inch.
these are too short for him?
Well, these are standard probes.
Right, but
Right, but if your contact, if you feel like your contact has been consistent, and you rarely if ever have the problem of achieving contact, then you're fine.
We're fine.
You're fine?
We're fine so far.
Okay, good, and you can always force contact through more power.
Right.
But like when I get my Samoyeds and my Huskies, because their coats are so dense, it's usually a struggle achieving consistent contact that I'll tell people to get those style of probes. But if you've been fine, then you're okay.
Yeah,
So
but
what's
you know-
that? What's in there now? Is that 3/4 in there now, or
That's, I think these are 1/2 inch.
1/2 inch? So if we do need to go up, it's to 3/4 full hair is what you said.
3/4 thick hair
Thick hair.
or the 1 inch probes.
Or the 1 inch.
Either one.
So the only thing I would think is, as we move into the winter in this coat, won't it sort of build out to protect him against the.
Yeah, when he gets his
cold?
winter coat.
So he could, you know, you could experience some disconnect because he's got much more fur.
Correct,
right?
correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was thinking through that.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, the way you have it fitted, technically, like I would doubt you have that problem.
Right.
But don't be surprised if like your number goes up a bit more,
Okay.
just because of that. The other thing is dogs tend to get spazzy in the wintertime, like they love the snow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of my clients say their dogs are great, and once it snowed, their dogs weren't listening.
Yeah.
And they're just so excited about the snow, and then the solution is always just raise the number.
Yeah, he likes the snow. One other thing before we get into this, Chandler and I together walked him one
Okay.
night, and he seemed to, she had the leash, and
Okay.
she's not, she doesn't know how to hold it. I was trying to show her how to
Okay,
hold it, right?
sure.
Then two, we were on a sidewalk in the South Loop, you know, they're not that wide, a lot of them.
Uh-huh.
But he seemed to get distracted, like if I was behind, he wanted to look at me.
Mhm.
We tried then putting both of us on either side of him.
Mhm.
It just seemed like there was too much stimulation with two people? Is that typical?
Yeah.
Or is there something we should do different?
No, it's super common.
Okay.
Like when I work with couples, like if they work with the dog solo, dog's great, and then when they work with the dog together, the
Uh-huh.
dog doesn't know who to go with.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, so that's not uncommon.
okay. Is
Uh,
there something we should do specifically if we try to do it together?
It's easiest if you put the dog in the middle.
Yes.
So like, let's say it's like, you, Sykes, and Chandler,
Yes,
right? And he's healing with you.
Yeah.
That's easiest.
Okay.
If he's healing with Chandler, she want to be on the right, so he's on the left,
got it.
and then you're on the other side of him.
Okay.
Because it keeps him centered.
Yeah.
That's the easiest.
Okay, that
Okay?
makes sense.
If you're trying to challenge him, which I'm always, an advocate of, it doesn't matter where you are in conjunction to him, he should be on whoever's hip he's supposed to be, right?
Okay.
The hardest for dogs is if you're here and like Henry or Chandler or Garland would be in the front, because he's gonna wanna be forging to be with the person ahead
That's
of you.
what
Yeah, but he
happens.
thinks-
The reason that I
He
wanted to make sure both of them came today is because of this very problem. I'm doing most of the walking and all that, so if she's walking him and I come out and they're down the block, he didn't do it this time, but I saw his ears went up, now he's looking at me, but he stayed with her.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
I wanna make sure that everybody works with him so that he gets used to, it's not just me that when the thing buzzes, he needs to get to.
Correct, correct. Okay, so you've done the most, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
Who's done the second most?
I would,
Me again.
I just got home.
The second one's what?
No, walking.
Training, walking.
I would say
That'd be nice.
it would be between those two, because
No,
he
it'd
does, you do it every night?
I walk in every,
Okay. All
Gotcha.
right. Then my wife, then Chandler, 'cause
Okay,
she's,
so you just came back.
right.
Gotcha, okay. Anything else?
just to keep going with the two of us walking him, we couldn't get him to stay in pace, even if I had the leash, he's supposed to walk, he was always ahead of me.
Okay, how did you fix that?
I fixed it, she
Chandler
didn't fix
would just
it, I
reverse
fixed
him,
it.
quite, like we,
He got it. at
You're
the
supposed
end,
to
that's
do
all I'm
this
saying.
turn.
I did it.
Oh,
That's what I
yeah,
did.
that's how you bring him back
How many
on.
corrections before you felt like he actually,
It was like, well, half the walk I told her to do, but she didn't do it at first, so he wasn't like getting it, and then when I started doing it, I think like 4, because he was already overstimulated, and then he like fell back out of it, so I did it again. Probably like 3 times.
With me, just as recently as like yesterday, he wasn't paying attention, so he kept foraging out. I do the correction turn, and he still wasn't getting it. So then I did a correction turn and a bump. And after that, he was right there.
with the e-collar?
Huh?
Talking about a bump with the
Yeah.
e-collar? Okay, yeah, so
The
that
first
always
couple-
happens.
First couple of
Yeah.
correction turns I do, I don't use the bump, and he'll follow me. But if he doesn't get in pace with me, if he still wants to forge ahead, the third time I do the correction turn, then I bump him, and he comes up here.
Sure.
That's what I say.
So whenever you do a correction, there's always an aversive applied to it. So-
Oh, okay.
So then, like, let's say you do 4 turns, and on the 4th turn, he's perfect because you tap him.
Okay.
Right? What's that tell us?
He's doing, he's
He's
got it.
doing it with the tap, right? So
Right.
then if I do on the first turn with the bump, then right off the first turn, I'm gonna have a perfect walk.
Got you.
See what I'm saying?
So,
So it's like with cops, right? Cops aren't consistent in the sense that they don't always issue tickets. Sometimes they just give you a verbal warning,
right,
right? But like, let's say, there was a time where I did a rolling stop. I didn't stop for the stop sign. The cop pulled me over. And she's like, I stopped you. And I said, I did a rolling stop. Like, I was just honest.
right,
And she was like, oh, well, I appreciate your honesty.
right,
Don't do that again.
right.
So I'm giving you a verbal warning for being honest. I'm like, cool. I still do a rolling stop,
Oh,
right?
so do I.
Because I didn't get a
That's-
consequence, right? I didn't get a consequence. But if every time I get stopped, guaranteed, it's like, you didn't stop. You didn't stop. You were over the speed limit. You ran that red light, right? It's so consistent that it really deters you.
Right.
And you're like, I can't mess around here because I'm gonna get a ticket. So like, I hear people all the time, if I travel to a certain part of Chicago or a certain suburb, they'll say, hey, watch how you drive because they're really strict out there.
right.
Like people will tell me, they're like, hey, watch it when you come to work with us or something because they're really strict out here, right?
Right.
So, but here in the city, it's different.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing for this guy. If every time, this is why my dogs are super consistent, is because anytime there's an infraction disobedience or misbehavior, consequence.
Okay.
So the dog goes, if I don't want the consequence,
Yeah.
I don't do the behavior.
Got it.
Okay?
So in other words, bump him on the, don't quit doing what I was doing, and but that's why I talk these things out, because I thought I was giving him a chance, and then if he didn't, so I was punishing, and you're saying be more proactive.
Yeah,
On the
because he
first
doesn't perceive it
instance.
as, he doesn't read it as punishment.
Okay,
Okay, we do.
okay,
Okay? He wants that consistency, okay? And it's super common, everybody gives the dog the chance to be a good dog.
Right.
I use every chance to make the dog be a good dog, okay? That's how I get that consistency. Because, and then the bigger picture to this, okay, is right there, we've created like a 3 correction delay, right, for him, for
Okay.
example, right? And he's going, cool, I can get away with this 3 times before the consequence actually sets in.
Oh.
Now let's apply that to like a recall setting. Sykes is running off towards the street, chasing a dog, whatever it is, it's not a good situation. If you've created delays in
yeah,
other commands, you're gonna get a delay in that recall.
And anything can happen.
And in that moment, you don't want the delay. In the moment, you're like, I need you to respond now, right? So if across the board, heel, sit, stay down someplace, whatever, it's always, you do it, there is no delay, it creates consistency amongst everything,
Got it.
okay? And that's the most important part.
so are you saying that if I give him a command, for example, to place, and he doesn't do it right away, I should hit him right
Yep.
away? Okay,
I give a half second.
okay,
Place, tap,
okay,
okay? So if he doesn't respond within that gap of place, tap, he's gonna get hit,
okay.
okay? And that creates consistency. Because people tend to go place, place.
That's what I've been doing. Okay, I'm glad I mentioned this
And I
stuff.
go
See,
place, tap,
Yeah.
every single time.
I haven't been there. I got him to a point where he knew I was gonna say place, so he'd come up the stairs and he'd start to take off before I could even say place, right?
Sure.
So I thought he kinda had it, so I wasn't even using the remote, I just come up and go place, and he'd go, but then he got wise to it.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
just this morning, I had to get the thing because I told him to place. Now he's standing up and he's looking at me, and then he takes a step.
Yeah,
Okay,
because he's playing that boundary now.
okay,
And because the thought process is, if the method is so effective, or if I do all the work or whatever, my dog is just gonna be compliant. Because that's what obedience is about. It's about compliancy, right? It's not about education,
mhm,
okay? It's about, I say this, you do it.
Mhm.
So if given the opportunity, like, do you like being told what to do?
no,
Right? Like, nobody likes being told what to do,
Right.
right? So here for him, even though he's been trained to do stuff, if he's got the opportunity of like, can I
I
get
don't
away
feel
with it?
like it, yeah.
Why not? Right? Because he is a living, breathing animal, which is why e-collar is effective, because it allows us to apply an aversive. Now, if you try to do this type of thing to a human, it would be terrible, right?
Yeah.
But humans, you know, we have the right to freedom. And we're aware of that freedom. We're self-aware, right, of what the things that we're allowed to do, not allowed to do, rights that are being taken away. We're aware of these things. He's not.
Right.
He's not aware of like, oh man, like, I don't have to be in this place for 2 hours. I'm a free dog.
Mhm.
You know, that thought process doesn't happen for him. So, and that's the difference between dogs and humans, is he doesn't care ultimately. But it's usually the human that feels bad about stuff because they want to give the dog the opportunity to avoid the aversive because they feel like it's punishing, or they think the dog feels sad about like not having the freedom of being able to be a dog or anything like that, and that's not the case at all.
Got it.
Okay? Anything else?
Nope.
So Chandler, for you, what do you know what to do with Sykes gear? Sykes.
I mean, I watched a lot. I know like I don't know how to do the turn, but I know when to do the turns.
Okay.
And like sit, I know place.
Okay. So you need more help with the healing stuff, the leash walking stuff, it sounds like.
I mean, I took him by myself and we did like perfectly fine twice
Okay.
already, so,
Did he see any dogs?
yeah.
And what happened?
When he saw the dog one time, I clicked him a couple times so he would stop looking. And another
Okay.
time, he just didn't do anything.
Okay. And what was your level?
Whatever it is, 40.
40 at the time?
It might have been, I might have turned it down to like 30, honestly. I don't think it was that high. Like, I didn't move it up, I might have turned it down.
Sure. What's the number been for you?
I keep him at right around 40.
Uh-huh.
If he doesn't pay attention, I'll go up to 50, but
Okay.
I haven't gone up past 50. Usually I stay at 40. Sometimes I take it down to 35. but I usually start always on 40.
Gotcha. And you said this week you had to tap him more?
Well, it's dawning on me now, it's because I was not applying consistency. Like I said, he had done it so well for a while that I didn't even have to use the remote.
Sure, yeah.
So now I'm not even carrying it around. The remote was in the other room, and I go place. And so he went over and he circled around. I don't make him sit or anything, but then he looked at me as I sat on the couch, and instead of just staying there, he started taking these steps. And then he'd look at me, and I was giving it, I was like, all right, I'm gonna give him a couple of steps this way, but if he gets past this point, I'm gonna hit it.
Sure.
But I didn't have the thing. So instead of going and getting it, I just stood up and said, place again, and he went back over here until I sat down, and he got up and he started creeping again.
Sure.
So I had to go get the remote.
Gotcha.
So when we were out.
But now I know why. It's because the first correction should have been, go get the remote, bam,
Yeah.
and then that was been done.
And it's actually better, like, let's say you saw that happening, you don't even acknowledge it, I just go get the remote. The moment, even if you're in a different room, the moment you grab it, I start remoting.
Okay.
Okay? Because once you try to correct them and there's no real aversive, he learns that.
Okay.
And he's like, you don't have any real power until you go grab that device. So then I just avoid the context entirely, and I go, well, I don't have the thing to correct you now, so let me go get it first, because I know you're not gonna listen otherwise. Okay?
Okay.
Oh, were you gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna say, when we were walking that night, there was a dog. I zapped him a couple of times. It did not seem to impact him at all.
He was ahead of you, correct?
Yes, it did.
No, it didn't. When we were crossing the street, the dog was out. I had to keep hitting him a couple times before it even seemed. Normally, when we're in this environment, Chandler, we see him immediately respond. He didn't respond that way.
Do you remember what your number was?
I think it was at 40. I
Okay.
think, but I'm not sure.
And at that time, you were walking Sykes.
No, Chandler had Sykes. I had the remote.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Am I wrong?
I mean, he did respond. He turned his head like 4 times.
But he was
He
still.
just turned it back, but he did respond too.
Okay, I see what you're saying, yeah. But you're seeing it as he didn't respond in the sense of like he didn't completely
He
disengage.
didn't.
That's okay.
That's correct.
Yeah, but she's saying he did respond because he did look away, he just ended up looking back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. So, the number, okay? It's really just raising the number.
Okay.
Almost always raising the number, okay? Because if 40 is your standard obedience level, okay, that's like 40 is, when there's nothing going on, that's when Sykes is good, okay?
Okay.
But when we factor in the dog,
Yeah.
now we have a distraction.
Right.
It could be 50, 60, 80, depending on what his state is,
Okay.
how escalated he is.
Okay.
What the dog's energy like, is a dog lunging and barking at him? Because
No.
I would expect his number's gonna be higher because I have to compensate for that.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, so, and as you get comfortable with this, so I give you my 3-tap rule. If not by the first tap, by the third tap, I bump it, okay? If you're comfortable with it at this point, mainly you, because you've done the most, is you can bump it right after the first hit. Because if I tap him at 40 for looking at a dog and he goes like this and goes right back to looking, clearly didn't work. And I could go right away to like 60 and then tap him again, and all of a sudden, one hit, he doesn't look back again. Right? So if you can recognize that, you can actually go up even after the first hit.
Okay.
So you're not staying there. I do that in the beginning because I'm trying to get you to recognize and get comfortable with the remote and having some kind of structure
Got it.
before bumping it, right? So you develop a means of reading Sykes.
I do that.
You do that?
I go about 5 until he does what I want him to do.
Gotcha. So now you can just escalate faster, okay? But for you, like, because you're just coming into using it, my rule is if I don't get a response by the first tap or by the third tap, and by response we're meaning like he completely disengages.
Right.
Okay, so he was responding, he was looking away, but then he kept looking back. And that's potentially a problem, because if he keeps looking back, then it can escalate to the reactivity again. And we want him to completely look away and ignore, and let that happen without any issues. Okay?
So a couple of times I'd have it. Usually my practice is, if I see another dog coming, regardless of size, I walk in as close to the curb as I can get, or to the parked cars, and then I sit him,
Mm-hmm.
and I let them walk by on the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I first started doing that, he'd sit here, and if he was sitting this way and the dog went by, as long as he didn't follow the dog, I wouldn't bump him. But if he did this, bam.
Sure.
Okay? But I got to the point after a while, again, where I thought he had it, and so I'd let the dog walk by, and I'd let him look and let him, but if he didn't respond, I didn't bump him. But now I'm starting to think, bump him until he just doesn't look at all. I was afraid it might make him too meek toward other dogs, and then he'd never be ready if another dog did attack him.
Oh, no, that would be different. He would defend himself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they're two different contexts. You know, one context is he's just sitting there, the dog passes. Another context is the dog's right here.
Okay.
Right? So you would have to like create this situation of a dog attacking and correct him for attacking back several times.
Okay.
For him to learn that. Yeah,
Okay. All right, I got it.
yeah. Do you have other questions?
No, we're done, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about all the
So,
questions.
where do you have like a trouble spot with the collar that you feel like you need more clarification on?
Just ask whatever concern you had when you were saying to me, Dad, I think it's too tight. Just tell him, so he can
He
either make.
already addressed it.
Oh, okay, well, I think that's what he.
I might suggest, why don't you take the leash and show Jesse how you handle it? Like,
Sure. Yeah,
that might
yeah.
help you, Jesse, to see.
I don't know how to, this might be
Oh, you're talking about holding the leash, huh?
Right.
Okay. So here. So, you like to hold it across yourself, it looks like? So what I think is easiest, if you take that with your leash here, trip it over your thumb, your right thumb. Okay? And then you just have your remote, so it's gonna be tucked back underneath the remote. Yeah, like that, okay? And then with the left hand,
You wanna go right
what I do is I take the leash and I wrap it around my pointer finger, and I close my hand like this, okay? So this is what we call, I call it the trainer hold, or a locking system, because here, if Sykes were to pull the leash, he's not gonna pull it out of your thumb. When people hold it like this happens. When they do this, that happens. And when people do this, they break fingers, okay? So here, by having it wrapped around your thumb, that secures one end of the leash, and then this end essentially does the same thing. And that secures the other end of the leash, okay? So if he were to just lunge out of nowhere, he shouldn't get anywhere, okay? And let me know if it gets too warm, guys. This place is either too hot or too cold. So, the next thing is the length that you're giving. So like, let's say you're walking and it's a completely empty sidewalk. This hold is perfectly fine, okay? Now, let's say you see a dog coming and you want to prepare for like, I want to get Sykes under control. You would position yourself next to him because he'd be in the heel, right? And what I would do is I would take my hand and slide it up on that leash, like that, good, and then, yep, perfect, okay? So what we're doing here is now you have more immediate leverage. Because if he were to lunge, before you had about 2 feet of slack, that gives Sykes about 2 feet to jump ahead of you. So by shortening it like this, he's limited, but then also if you need to make contact with him, go ahead and pull up. You see how little you have to move to get that prong to kick in? If you have 2 feet of slack, now you're up here, okay? So then that's harder to control. And then once you're done with the moment of the dog passing, you would go back, give the slack, and then start your walking process again, okay? Questions on that? Okay. So go ahead and, so you know you're familiar with place. You understand healing, you said it's just knowing when to turn.
No, I don't do the footwork, but I know, like, I was listening to you when you, like, goes ahead, you're supposed to quick turn, I tell my mom that too.
Okay.
So I just, do I have to do, like, that exact footwork, or if I just quick turn, is that fine?
For, like, when he's passing?
When he's passing?
Yeah, the quick turn. So the footwork only applies when, Tacker, what's the number?
40.
Let's go down to 25. Yep. Wait a moment, wait. Good. I'm getting anxious because they left. The footwork only applies when he's paying attention. If he's not paying attention, you do the abrupt turn, okay? So the purpose behind the footwork is to communicate to Sykes like, hey, this is what we're doing. So if he's paying attention, it would be unfair to just randomly turn out of nowhere because he's not gonna get it. Same thing with the stopping. If you just stop abruptly, he's never gonna catch it because it's too soon. Do you drive?
Mhm.
And so like if you're driving and you stop too suddenly, what do you expect would happen? So they hit you, right? It's too abrupt. You have to pump your brakes, slow down. Person behind you sees your red lights, and they go, oh, you're slowing down. They can stop with you.
Yeah.
So same thing for Sykes. If you're not communicating like, hey, this is what I'm doing, it's going to be messy, okay? So the abrupt turn always in effect when Sykes passes you, okay? You don't have to worry about the footwork. You're walking with Sykes, and then he passes. Now you're tapping and going the opposite way, okay? So go ahead and show. So you're familiar with the footwork, but you're not 100% sure on it, correct?
Correct.
All right, so let's take a look at this. Let me have you go ahead and try popping them in the heel and then showing me what you know how to do.
Heel.
That's like something like something.
Yeah,
I'm
that-
never gonna dance, so.
I never seen that, but I don't, okay, so, I just don't, I know it's like a, something like that.
Right? Okay, now go ahead and come to a stop here. Good, okay. So a couple of things. Your footwork is correct. Let me have you give Sykes about another 1.5 feet of slack here. There we go, okay? So when you're going into healing mode and you have an open environment, you want to go back to this, okay? If you're going to turn around a corner or if you're seeing a dog approaching, you would go to shorten it. That's going to give you the most control. So here, you came to a stop and where's Sykes right now? He's in front of you, right? Go ahead and take one step forward, right there, okay? Tip. There we go. One tiny little step forward. Right there, perfect. So that's where he's supposed to be, okay? His right shoulder parallel to your left leg. So here, when you're coming to a stop, because the reason why he stopped a little bit short earlier is because you had the leash shorter. So you weren't giving him the space to make the mistake. But he was gonna do it, that's why he ended up over here, okay? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna have you just practice a couple of these back and forths, but when you come to that stop, if you see Sykes still going, you're gonna pivot and tap to sync him up with you, okay? And you're at 25 now?
Yes.
Okay, so your pivots were correct, okay? You were extending the left leg and pivoting back like that, all that was fine. And then we're gonna go over the crossovers, which is the harder turn. That's the one where you're turning into Sykes. Exactly, okay, but for now, we're gonna just focus on you stopping with Sykes and him staying with you, and then using that right pivot, extending that left leg, okay? Go ahead and heel.
Heel.
Now, right turn, good. Now slow down. Tap, tap, good. Now slow down. Right. Now slow. So you see the difference there, okay? Now, on the first one, you tapped, but it didn't happen until you had already passed. Tap here. There you go, good. The second one was correct. When you did or maybe, I think you did 3 turns, right? Mm-hmm. On the third one, you tapped as you did that correctional pivot. That's correct. That's when it's supposed to come in, okay? Because if you give it too late, he's not gonna associate what is happening for it. So then by the time you hit that third pivot, then he started kind of stutter stepping because now he's watching what you're doing, okay? So the faster you kick in with that appropriate hit, the faster he's gonna lock in, okay? I'm gonna have you try the same thing, but I have you move at a slower pace.
Heel.
Turn, tap, tap, right there. Turn, tap, right? Now slow. So you see how he's getting ahead of you here, right? Go ahead and bump it back to 35. Go ahead and move forward, heel.
Heel.
Turn. Now slow walk. Keep moving forward. Yep, bump through him, bump through him, bump through him.
Oh.
It's okay. Now turn again. Nothing here, because he walked with you. Good. Keep straight. Slow. Pivot. Good, now slow walk.
Stop.
Keep moving forward. Now slow pivot. Good pivot. Yep, there you go. Keep straight, bump through. Now slow walk. Slower. Stop. Okay, now tap. Right there. Good. Okay. So here, on 25, you did a few rapid fire turns, but you could still see how impulsive he was after you completed the turn, right? So it should be, once you turn and tap him, boom, he should just lock in.
What happens when she does that, because he does it to me, when you make that correctional turn, he starts to go across your
Yes,
back.
yeah.
All right, so what do you do?
You need him.
Yes.
Just knee him?
You counter him with the right leg.
Okay, that's all I need.
Yeah, yeah. Because what happens is you're walking, right? He starts to come over,
Right.
and one thing you can do is just turn into him, but you're doing it in this is with intent, okay?
Do, say what?
With intent.
Okay.
Like if he starts to cross over, you have to come and go boom,
Boom.
okay? Because now you're countering him, because remote means coming closer.
Okay,
So people sometimes tap for this, but then the dog comes in closer.
right.
So instead, there's no tap, it's just the knee, boom, and I keep powering through. So when I say power through, I'm saying, use your body.
Let me ask you though, so I'm walking down the sidewalk, right? And he's on my left, okay? And I bumped him a couple times, now he's crossing over him. Now, when I go to knee him, I can't turn this way, I walk into a car. So do I just knee him and then keep walking straight? Is
Yeah,
that
so like if he's starting to cross over, it would just be like
Boom.
this.
Yeah.
It's gonna be awkward for sure. It's
Okay,
not the
that's-
same
I'm
as
just-
Bino doing a full turn.
Right.
But you can also, like, if you're limited on space, it's just boom, boom, boom. And now you're going back the opposite
Oh,
way.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, kind of like, the crossover.
Yeah.
But this is unannounced.
Okay.
So with the crossover, you would slow down and then right.
Right.
If he's crossing over you and you're trying to fix that,
It's just when he comes,
boom,
okay, I got
it's
you.
going to him.
I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yep.
Okay.
So here, for you, Chandler, if that happens, okay, if Sykes on the correction overcompensates, I'm gonna have you to now, as best you can, is just time it. And the next time your right leg's gonna come out, you're gonna just pop him and you're gonna really just drive in and you're making a U-turn,
And go the other way.
going across him.
So like I turn here and then I just go that way, or come back around to the same position.
You would still be moving.
Yeah.
Oh.
It'd
Yeah,
be like
you
making
still
a
be
right
moving.
turn instead of a left turn, except you're making this right turn to compensate for him
Yes.
walking in on it.
Yeah.
No, she's saying
No, I'm
she
saying
changed
if
the
I'm going
direction
this
or
way,
she
yeah, am I
just.
changing direction?
Correct, you'd be
Oh,
going the
okay.
opposite way then.
Okay,
Yes, yes. So, and then when you're doing this turn, it's not doing a UE in between you and Sykes. You would be over now, like you're crossing over him. Because if you do it too sharp, he's gonna be here,
Okay.
okay? And you're trying to keep him on your left side. Okay? Heel forward.
Heel. Still walk slow.
Yeah, now go to pivot here. That's okay, good, he moves with you, no problem, keep forward. There he goes. Yep, hold your left tap, keep walking forward. Tap, tap, there he goes. Now here, yep, that's fine. And pivot, good. We're gonna try a couple more pivots. Good, one more pivot. Good. Now what you're gonna do is the left turn. Okay, this will be crossing with your right leg. Right, left, right again. There you go. Yep. Good. There you go. Two more. Good. Good, one more. Very good. And then here, go ahead and just do a pivot at the end, and you'll stop in the middle. Yeah, now I'm going to slow to a stop. Good. So you see how, tap. Good. You see how little you have to do there? Do you know why that is?
Probably because we reinforced it the last time,
Reinforce what?
like, him like staying to our side.
Correct, yes. Because, so on 25, he kept, messing around. He kept overshooting. And then he went to 35, and we got a couple of yips. There was 2 that he yelped on, and then maybe 2 more hits after that. So 4 total, I think. And all of a sudden, there he is. Okay? E-collar should never feel like an argument. Okay? And if it is feeling like an argument, meaning you're tapping and tapping and tapping, no response, you're too low. Yep. Okay? I think today we have really good contact too. So I can see why if you're at 40 and you went down to 35 sometimes, that makes sense to me, seeing what's going on here. So now, don't worry about how Sykes feels about stuff. Okay? Like if you see a dog coming, like I always tell everybody, just assume the dog's gonna be reactive and just jack it up. Because it makes your life a lot easier. People are trying to
Give the dog a chance. Right?
chance, right? But there's no such thing as good dog, bad dog.
Right.
That's human analyzation, right? Because in his world, like there's a really good video on YouTube. I think it's like, if you look up like dominance over females in heat or something, I think it's a documentary of dogs, wild dogs in like South America. And it's like a female that's in heat, and like 10 dogs are fighting over her. And I think it goes to like 3 or 4 dogs. And the last dog that ends up possessing her is like a Rottie or something. Right? So it's the most powerful dog there is. And they get torn up, like just huge gashes and blood, like all over, like it's super primal.
Wait, the rock does this to all the other dogs? and
They do it
he's the
to each
winner?
other. They get this huge scuffles, right? Because we're so used to seeing dogs as like
Domesticated.
domesticated, but like the word I think is like amicable or amiable, which is like they're not capable of being mean.
Right.
That they're just completely docile, happy and positive creatures, and that's not the case, right? Dogs are primal, but we don't see that side of them because he's in a house. He's neutered, right? Yeah, all that stuff, right, has created changes. But in reality, he's still driven by instinct. And they don't judge each other by good or bad. And these dogs are tearing each other up. That's instinct, right? They have to survive and replicate. So here, the whole concept of letting the dog be a good dog and all that stuff is really just human analyzation. So here, that 35 is ultimately where it's like, oh wow, like now he's not questioning anything because you're appropriate to him. We don't pick the number. He picks the number. If we got all of that on 8, we would be on 8. Okay? If I have to be on 108, 127, if I gotta get a second collar out, you bet I'm gonna make that dog compliant because I'm willing to go that far, right? And I've had dogs like that. What system is he on? The 2200?
Yeah, we couldn't get the,
Okay, yeah, he's on the 2300, right?
yeah.
So there's the collar above that, right, which is the
Right.
highest power collar. And I've had dogs that needed 1 remote paired to 2 collars.
Ooh.
Okay, because they were that bad.
That's that dog.
Humanoid, right? It's both of them, 150-pound dogs. One was a 150-pound Rottie, the other was a 150-pound bully dog. It's a new breed coming out. Massive dogs, both human aggressive. Both, if you walk past, you're getting bit,
What?
right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Uh-uh.
So, 1 collar, and I did 1 collar. We did, and I'm like, session 6, I'm like, it's not getting better. I'm like, all right, I have an idea. Let's get a second collar. All of a sudden, now they're fine.
Oh my God.
Because I matched them. So everybody has a breaking point.
So in other words, the dog he's describing was like the Hercules of dogs.
Yeah.
Compared to the average mortals running around where you could shoot them with 1 arrow, they fall down dead. Hercules, you gotta shoot with 1,000 arrows, that kind of
That's
thing.
great.
Yeah. I've dealt a lot of stuff in 10 years, which is why I have, like, my thinking is a certain way. because I've dealt with very soft dogs, I've dealt with very stubborn dogs, very powerful, aggressive dogs. Everybody has a breaking point. It's just a matter of how far are you willing to go. You know, in those two cases, the owners were willing to go. So that's why we were able to get to that level of success, because they were like, sure, if my dog needs 2 collars, if that's what you think it's gonna work, you know,
I'm tired
it's
of
an
biting my
experiment,
ass.
you know?
That's what I do. Right?
So, and then for Sykes here, he don't need that. He's on 35, 40, okay? So if you ever feel bad about any of that stuff, don't dogs bite each other. This is just muscle contraction, whatever. But definitely don't fall into the idea of giving them the opportunity, because you're gonna end up working against yourself.
Yeah, that's my biggest pitfall.
Right.
It's the most common thing that I
I'm
see.
too nice, that's it.
Yeah. And he's
You
not
see,
gonna like
this
you any
is why I
less.
had to have everybody come here, because I'm going through these battles. He's still here, you know. I'm going through these battles, and that's why I wanted you to affirm, like with the tightness of the collar and all these other things you're saying. So, because my goal here is that we're all on the same page, because if we aren't, if she does it a different way than I do it, then she does it, then he does it, then he's gonna get confused.
Yes.
And
It
it's not
creates, you
fair
end
to
up
him.
making progress and steps back, right? Because, what makes it harder is because you're within the home.
I'm talking to you, Dad, you know?
Good.
Within the home, right? Now, because let's say the home was consistent, every now and then you had a visitor come over who wasn't on the same page, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter because they're not part of the home.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
The whole, like, the home is the core, that's the constant influence in the dog's life, as opposed to someone who's just kind of in and out, right? So that's why it's super important. And I've dealt with families that were split right down the middle, half were pro e-collar, half were against e-collar. And then it was just,
It's like you
got
can't
stuck.
get him undone.
you got stopped, yeah, like, because the
Because I'll
dog
take
knew.
him out and get him into something, and then somebody will come behind me and take him out and run the whole thing because they don't follow up and stay consistent.
Yeah. So, and actually the one thing that actually makes the most, is the most important, is actually the number. So even if she did like the healing stuff wrong, but her discipline with the level was correct, it wouldn't matter.
Okay.
Okay? He might get a little confused with the movements and stuff, but that's, because I always put behavior first. As long as he's not being reactive, I could care less, right? But we use this to make things easier for the owner because you have a structure, right? You have a certain way of moving, you have a certain way of coming to a stop. It makes that much easier. But I have clients that they forget the stuff. A lot of people forget it. They're not doing it correctly other than slowing down. But the slowing down is really the most important part, and the number. Because as long as he's thinking like, hey, I can't get away with anything with you because you'll blast me at 60, he's not gonna wanna question 60. He's not gonna be reactive.
Right.
That's actually the most important part, you know? So if anything, if you're struggling with any kind of consistency, the number. Because if she's on 15 and he's on 10 and you're on 25 and you're saying, but 40 is the number.
40 is our base. So when we start, all the time we start on 40. The only time I kick it down is if, when I hit him on 40, he super yelps like I hit him on 80. Then
Sure.
I kick it down to 35, but then if he doesn't respond, then I kick it back up and he just yelps until he stops.
And-
That, if we change our base, we need to communicate that to each other so that we stay consistent with him. Because I don't want to take him out at 40 and then in the evening he goes out at 20 or at 7, okay?
And the yelping, right, doesn't always mean physical discomfort.
Oh, it
It can
doesn't?
be surprise,
Okay.
right? You guys ever been to a haunted house?
Yeah,
And you know it's not
Yeah.
real.
Right.
You still get scared though,
right.
right? It's the same thing. You're already on edge. So it doesn't always mean
Pain.
physical pain.
Right.
It can be surprise. It can be frustration.
Okay.
If he's already lunging and barking at something and I'm remoting him and he's like barking louder, it's because he's frustrated because he doesn't want to stop what he's doing. Like a kid throwing a tantrum because they're not going to get something.
Right.
They're not in physical pain, they're just throwing a fit. Okay? So whenever you hear that yelp, like you said, if I'm at 40, he yelps and I go to 35 and all of a sudden he's not listening, to me I'm thinking he must have been surprised.
Okay.
So go
Right?
back to
Because
40.
if it really was the power,
Right.
35 would be just as effective at the 40. You know, because that happens. And German Shepherds are notorious for being vocal dogs. They're super vocal.
Oh, tell me.
I should have Googled that before you got him.
What? Didn't I tell you that? Yeah, you told me that all the time.
Questions on that? Do you know how to do the stay?
The one where you go around the.
Oh, I
Yeah,
did,
she
I
does.
practiced that.
Okay, may I see?
Sure. Do I have to heel him first?
No, so he's actually in the heel right now, right?
Okay.
So,
Tell
and
me
don't
about
worry.
right foot though, because I don't know if she knows that.
Okay, so here, Sykes doesn't need to be looking at you,
Oh,
okay? So what you're gonna do is just with your left hand, you're just gonna go like this and say stay,
Stay.
okay? And then go ahead and shorten your leash again like you had it. And you're gonna pivot out with your right leg, like this. Yeah, there you go. And then bring your left leg out too. There you go. Now here, what you're gonna start to do is move around Sykes. And if he stands up, you're gonna pull up on your leash and tap to put that butt back down again, but you would not say anything,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, she's done that pretty well, I think. You're too close to the thing.
No, she's.
Okay, we're good. Keep moving around.
Okay.
Use what space you have. Good, and then back to the side again. And then, I'm sorry, you're gonna step in front of him. Like that, perfect. And then you're gonna step back to the side. Good, okay? So, right now, what command is Sykes in?
Heel.
Nope?
Nope.
No, stay.
Stay.
Yes.
Oh, stay.
Because that's the last thing you said, okay? So, tiny little detail, right? So if you were to move forward again, what should he do?
Stay.
Correct. Now, once you issue the word heel, now it's, hey, you need to move with me,
Oh,
okay? So go ahead and put Sykes in the heel and have you come down, pivot, back, crossover, and then land in the middle again.
Okay. Heel.
Yep, good pivot. Good. Slow down to a stop. Okay, wait a moment. Now here, see what he does. 'Cause he looks like he might lie down. Now here, don't pull, just tap. There you go.
Oh, don't pull.
Don't pull, yeah, because he keeps trying to lay down. So what I would do is actually tap first to force that sitting position. If he didn't respond within 2 to 3 taps, I'll keep tapping and then use the leash.
Is he not supposed to lay because we just didn't tell him
Correct. So what command is he in now?
that? Heel still.
Yes, he's on the heel, because a lot of people would see that and say sit.
Oh, I didn't know that, because you didn't tell him to sit yet?
Remember, this is automatic. This is built into the heel command. Walk with me, stay with me, sit when I stop. That's the heel command package. Okay? So that's usually a trick question, because I'll say, what's your dog, what position is your dog, what command is your dog in? Sit. When did you say sit?
Right.
Never. What is the last thing you said? I said heel. Your dog is
That's
in
the
the heel.
command he's in.
Okay? So here, heel, again, walk with me, stay with me, sit when I stop. So if you were to move again, his inclination is gonna wanna move with you. So that's why when you give that stay, you're now overriding the heel and you're saying, now you don't move. Okay? So I'm gonna have you repeat that process. You're gonna go and cross with your left hand and say the word stay.
Stay.
Pivot out with that right leg. Good? And then you're gonna start to move around. It's okay. As long as that butt doesn't get up or he doesn't lay down, he's fine. Even if he swivels a little bit, that's fine. Back to his side. Good. Now, there's one thing that I've noticed about Sykes in the past, like, 10 minutes. You know what it is?
He looks down at the
Looking
ground.
down the ground.
Well, yeah, he's been looking down more, right? Do we know why that is?
No, why?
He's like being submissive.
A little bit submissive, because you got into his head with those 35s. Okay, when you corrected him those 4 or 5 times and then the 35 hit, it's made him more cautious, more a little bit insecure, because now he's kind of like, where is that consequence? What's causing that to happen, right? Because he's a dog, like he, even though he's done this for weeks now with you, now that you're reinforcing it with you as well, it's different, okay? So, e-call is very effective because transference is very high, meaning after having worked with him and you pass it off to somebody else, right away Sykes was doing the same thing without much help. But he had already layered in the foundation. But now with you, he hasn't fully understood that. Okay, so now we're transferring.
Thank you, Henry.
Now we're transferring that to you, and in order to get Sykes to respect that, it's now that number. because everybody approaches Sykes differently, right? Out of all of us here, who do you think would be the biggest asshole to Sykes?
3. It depends.
I'd say that.
I'd say me.
That's true.
Because you're not part of the family.
It's not part of the family. So if I approach Sykes, and I haven't handled him, but technically speaking, it would be me, because I would be the harshest. Because I have no emotional connection with him. I'm a trainer. I'm right away into like, if I'm gonna go to 60, I'm going to 60, because I already know the stuff. I've educated you guys, right? From what I've seen here so far, the next person would be Henry, right? Because like last week, remember when you took off and you accidentally went to 80? And you said it is what it is, and you just made it happen.
Yep.
Right? So he learned that with you, where he's like, oh crap, man,
Don't fall
yeah, exactly. Don't make any mistakes.
That's what
right?
I wanted.
And then for you, earlier you mentioned something about like giving him the opportunity and like being soft with him, right? So if your personality is soft with Sykes, soft and authority don't really go together well. Okay? Now it doesn't mean you have to be mean. Okay? Because we've not been mean, we've not yelled at him, not kicked him, we've not been overly aggressive without any like
Without a good reason.
exactly. He hit him on 80 last week. It happened, and he worked him through it because that's just life. Like in life, you may have to be at 127 one day, right? Because it's an emergency. But he wasn't doing it with ill intention. So that's the thing that people have a hard time with, is because they're so stuck on, oh, the dog's yelping. I'm like, yeah, but we didn't pick the number. The dog did, right? So here for you, now you're kind of compensating for that softness. And you're saying like, hey, Sykes, you know, I like you and I love you, but if I have to go to 82, I'm going to 82, right? And then he learns like, oh, okay, cool, like your energy doesn't matter. You're still willing to go to this extent to reinforce the behavior, okay? Questions about any of that stuff? So I think for this week, and just in general, for you to practice, is the heel. That's the most important command, aside from the recall. But behavior-wise and the reactivity, or the control reactivity-wise, heel's gonna be your best friend, okay? That number, figuring out what that number's gonna be for you is probably gonna be, 40s. It might even be a little bit higher for you, because now you have to compensate. Does that make sense? And I've had couples where like, if the wife is like very assertive and the husband's soft, the wife's number will be lower, the husband's number will be higher, because they have to compensate for that personality difference. Does that make sense? So, you might be at 55 and you would get what 40 gets for Henry, And then over time, you might see that 55 start to drop because now Sykes starts to see you like, oh, okay, like you mean business too. I don't need that much power anymore. Okay? What dictates if the number goes higher or lower is his behavior. Okay? If he's being perfect, walking at your side at 35, perfect. If he's perfect when the dog comes by, no reactivity, awesome. 35 is the number. Okay? But if he starts to act up or he starts to forge too much, I just go higher, and within a couple of minutes, if you've escalated and you've done a good job of it, you should be right on your hip, no problem. Again, it shouldn't be like an argument. Okay? Other questions?
Well, no, only one thing I want to mention that everybody else might encounter that I encounter is, now I forgot. That's okay, good. I'll think about it. Just forget it. If it comes to me, I'll let you know.
No worries.
Otherwise, I'm fine.
Yeah, so it's often just comes down to the number, okay? And then practicing the stay, so you have a concept of it. Doesn't need to be anything fancy. If you're walking Sykes, I just suggest you can practice like when you're at a stoplight or a red light or something. As you're waiting for it to turn green, just practice this stuff. It's just to get you used to the handling aspect of Sykes.
Okay.
Okay? Anything else?
I just have one. Garland, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if Garland hasn't really practiced this, it's just in general, and he has his own way of thinking around how he's gonna work with the dog, would that in any way jeopardize what we're doing?
If your numbers are correct, no.
Okay.
So let's say I have a family with a dog walker. Dog walker doesn't touch the remote, okay? Dog blows up whenever with the dog walker, reactive, lunging, barking, right? But the owners are consistent about 80, 80, 80. The dog will learn that difference. Bless you. The dog will learn, oh, if I'm with mom, dad, my uncle, whatever, I have to behave myself because I know I'm gonna get 80, but I know with the dog walker, I can get away with crap. They don't hook up each
Okay,
other.
I just wanted to-
Yeah,
Not
okay.
to say that if there's any difference, I just know he hasn't done this, so I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, as long as your numbers are correct, there shouldn't be an issue. Okay?
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
Awesome. So very simple today, just a quick review for you. If you feel